Hello, everyone. I'm exhausted. Excuse me. So last night, I had an idea. I had a thought to pull one of the Mausolea Oracle of Souls cards and one of the Prime Use Double Major Tarot deck cards. And I think that's how I'll use these. Since everything is a major or a core card. They should have had aces too. But then that would have added 8 more cards. And that would have put it at 84. So maybe not. But anyway, that's what I'm gonna do. Maybe for like broader things, for less specifically person us things, more collective, larger energies at play. It'd be good. Because it's all, I mean, I guess not that, we don't get majors and stuff. I don't know. This is what I felt like doing, so I'm doing it, okay? And then I'm going to roll my d4 to see how many of these I do. Because I was just going to do 3, but y'all know I like to integrate chance and all kinds of things. So I like to not make decisions. So I like to let Siri and dice make decisions for me. Even though I guess life is teaching me to be more decisive in ways. Excuse me. Goodness. Goodness. I guess I got this adorable dice bag. It's a squid. And it's so cute. So let's see. See, you open it from there. I just want the D4 though. See if I could not sleep last night. Excuse me. And I thought I'd be more miserable today than I am. 4. Okay, so we're gonna do 4. Interesting. I need a new sticky note so I can timestamp. Hey Holly, how you doing? I know, right? And I have like this rainbow set of dice, so it's like so cute. My coworkers picked it out for me. Just do card 1. So we'll do intro 0000. Card 1, card 2, card 3, card 4. And I'm going to leave this sticky note on the screen, so hopefully I don't forget to do the timestamp. Excuse me. I'm well. A little tired, but well. Intrigued by the goings on of the universe and the sequencing of things. But well. Okay. So for the first one, I'm gonna get the Mausolea card first, and I'm gonna take however many cards come out. Hopefully, it's 1 or 2 at the most. And I guess so. Maybe these will be collective things. I don't know. They'll be whatever they are, right? Hopefully, they're not too long. I don't think they will be. But let's go. And we're just gonna keep going until something flips out, turns over, until something makes itself known. So this could be a pick, this could be a watch all four, this could be a pick two, pick three, pick four. How many cards is that? Oh, only two cards. So Morgan Le Fay and Dawn. We've seen Dawn before. Excuse me. Oh, both of these are in the Celtic realm too, which is interesting. I wish in the book they had a page that showed you like the symbols with the different domains. Yeah, that's usually how things go. That's the Morgan, who is not Morgan Le Fay. So yeah, this is the afterworld of Anwin. So the domain of Anwin is the ancient hunting ground of the gods, a land of myth and folklore. It is both wild and unpredictable, and bound by traditions, customs, and rituals as old as time itself. To dwell in Anwin is to be both bound and wild, ancient and childlike, fair and bestial. And then we have Morgan Le Fay, the Witch of Ages, atonement, growth, and deceit. Okay, maybe I will move this so I can see if this is in focus. Maybe I should hold it like that. And then Dawn, the Red Shepherd, just reward, evaluation, and respite. So it's interesting that there's an energy of atonement and reward, respite. Also interesting that in the middle two domains are growth and evaluation. So atonement and just reward, growth and evaluation, and then deceit and respite is a combination of these. To be both bound and wild. Okay, let's see. Let's see. Now let's get some Majaz. I wouldn't be surprised if like Temperance or the Star came out. I wouldn't be surprised if the Star comes out because it has messages both of healing and of wish fulfillment. And it's neither of those cards. Oh my gosh, it's 333. 21, 3, and 12 at the bottom of the deck. The World, the Empress, and the Hanged Man. Three threes is a 9, which is an energy of completion. I think this is the Empress after she's given birth. This is the world that like walks away from the frame, dressed in the purple silks of. So it does feel like with the way the world card is traditionally depicted, it feels like the purple silk is okay. I thought it fell on the floor. Like the purple silk is wrapping itself around her body, but we don't see it like we see it in motion as it's coming to clothe her. And so there is something about it's almost a rebirth of the self. And it's interesting because the Empress both it's like the many natures of feminine energy of the mothers, the lover and the protector. It could be a father too, right? But with the hanged man at the bottom of the deck, so we have these two ladies in Morgan Le Fay, and then we have Dawn with the hanged man, which is interesting. It feels like there's something in here about like giving people their time, or there's something in here about how we all come into things in our own time. And it feels like if this it feels kind of feminine masculine, um and that it's like the feminine has been going through and growing through a healing process, her journey, and now she's coming into this space where she can be powerful and feminine at the same time, where like her power doesn't take away from her femininity. She realizes that it's a part of it, it's one of the many aspects. And it's almost like it's something that feminine energy could have been encouraged to do in the space of a sort of like hyper masculinized, hyper active, like hyper being that, like that's where the focus is. The fact the focus on things have been on like production, producing, showing, exhibiting, very masculine sort of aspects, and less on the feminine. And so it's almost like it's something that the feminine had an opportunity to come into under masculinized pressure. And then it's almost like there are parts of masculine energy that we're aware of, the softer side of the masculine. You say you want a Starbucks? No, you're playing Sudoku. Okay. Maybe I need Starbucks. um, and the wind is picking up. I don't know if y'all can hear it, but it's like, or it's like in the presence of the feminine, in the presence of masculine, has had to be certain things that she sees as masculine or as outside of herself. But it's like there are parts of her that play to that, because there's an aspect of the masculine within the feminine, right? It's very Rob Odinson, anima animus. But it's like, since everything has been so masculinely focused, the masculine hasn't necessarily had as much of an opportunity to explore his feminine side, just because, at least here culturally, societally, um, reasons, right? But then he sits in a period of evaluation and introspection, which is how, I don't want to say masculine gets feminized, um, but which is how masculine taps into its anima, which is how masculine finds its more sensitive, caring, nurturing, introspective, um, compassionate, and considerate energies. It's almost like masculine has to be something or has to see something and then internally ask itself, is this like what I want? Is this who I am? Is this too much? Is this excessive? Like, should I be more, whatever? It feels like this is more internally motivated for the masculine, whereas, and like it's literally coming out with the world. So that one's more externally motivated. Um, But altogether, it feels like there's an energy of coming to the completion of certain cycles, and it feels like there's a weight or a magnitude to them, because it feels like with the hangman there's also this feeling of like not necessarily knowing, um it's like, what's that card, the vision catching up to the fantasy? I don't remember which one it is in the diceology. uh but it's almost like nothing is yet necessarily concrete, or nothing has yet necessarily been experienced enough to have a sense of sort of like knowing how things work. It's like if there's a new part or aspect of yourself that you discover, and so then you do activities, you join groups, you talk to people, you find ways to be in that new part of yourself, to see how it changes the overall topography of who you are, to see how it fits in with everything else that you already are. And the energy of deceit that came in, it feels like, if this is like the feminine masculine, it feels like there's a potential for feminine energy, or anyone who's already sort of come into a certain level of growth and healing, to rush another's process, to sort of like get them where we want them to be. And it's not necessarily malicious. Um, but it also, it's like it doesn't speed things up for the other person. It doesn't get them off the tree any faster. Or with the energy of respite, it's like it'll take time for things to set in, and for things to settle, and for things to permeate, and then for things to react, and then for things to change, and then for the balance to really begin to shift. Is there anybody who would be like, I've done all this healing and I'm waiting on someone else, and I'm starting to get bored and I'm ready to do this and do that? And I don't know, it's not to rush the process of another, or even to rush the process of ourselves either, because this could be an internal feminine and masculine energy, where it's like the intuition, the healing, the ideation is one thing, but our actions and our environment and the way we interact and engage with the world is something else. And it's like we want a more immediate sort of connection. But for us, like within an individual, if the masculine is the action, like it's going to take time or opportunities for us to take different actions, or for us to establish new habits and patterns. And while we're going through the process of establishing new habits and patterns, it's like we're converting from one to the other. So there's going to be some lag time, there's going to be some residue potentially. um, and so it's like it all of the skill in healing, growth, and introspection that we gain during the healing process up until the crossover transition point. It's like those same skills can be used and utilized in ways to help us understand, um, the process of a self in transition, I guess, and to be more patient and compassionate with ourselves, and to also, when we feel something, to see where that feeling is coming from, to see where that feel what that feeling is connected or attached to, if there is a connection or attachment. If there's not, then it's residue. Shout out to my journey buddy. Because we ended up talking about that yesterday. Uh, about how it's like the narrative shifts or the framework shifts or perspective shifts. And so we could be in a situation and feel a certain thing because that's what we always feel in that situation. Or like there is a part of us that maybe held some expectation or hope. Um, and it's okay to do that. And then if things don't work out in a certain way, if we feel disappointed because it didn't work out how we hoped, then it's okay to do that too. But it's like as we are more in tune with our feelings and emotions, because again, like the healing part of the journey was like finding the finding the connections between the feelings and the roots, like the things, and then maybe like finding the connection between the feeling, the root, and then the manifestation. Like when I feel like this, I act in this way, or I might say these things, I might think these things. Like the things that we say, do, think, the things that we say, do, and think are like manifestations of the feeling, and then like what is that feeling attached to, right? But then like that's building the awareness piece, but as we're making that transition, that same awareness can inform us of whether the feeling is attached still, like if this is something that we used to feel, if it's something that we still currently feel, or if it's like it helps us gauge and evaluate ourselves, right, moving forward. And then that's what allows the it's like the inside of the seed is the feminine, and then the outside, like the inside of the plant is feminine and the outside is masculine. um or like below the surface is feminine, and that's all the stuff that we do inside. And so like the seed itself has to be sort of like nurtured as it's like developing roots and it's pushing up towards to break the surface. Shout out to Everlong Mystic. She's doing a wave series right now. I just watched the Taurus one. And in that it's almost similar in when you have the trough and when you have the crest. And then there's the surface plant. Hey, what's up? Hello. How are you? And it's like there's the point where we sort of break the surface, and that's when we come more into the masculine expression. So just like a seed, it's like it's okay if you're not in full bloom while you're still under the earth, because if you bloomed under the earth, there's not much sunlight there anyway. There's not much gas for you to exchange through the stoma and your leaves anyway. It's like it's okay to be where you are and to continue to develop and grow. And as you go through those seasons of transitions and as you go through those seasons of cycles, like things will gradually sort of happen. And then it feels like with the gradualness of it, it allows us to gain deeper understandings and awarenesses throughout those phases, rather than it's like, I went through 25 things in 2 days and it took me 5 years to process. You know what I mean? It gives us a power of presence. And that was one of the cards. It was the power to be present and the wisdom to prepare for the future or something like that. I forget what the card was, but my Sunday is nice. Feeling lazy. I'm tired. So that was the first one. And I literally did not timestamp it. I was like, I'm going to put this sticky note right here so I don't forget to timestamp. I literally moved the sticky note because I couldn't see the first card I held up. Didn't even do the timestamp. But I think it was somewhere around like, I wasn't talking for like 10 whole. I'll sharpen up the timestamp later. Because I was going to do number 2, and then I was like, oh, I didn't timestamp number 1. Oof. But yeah, it's like, we're growing and the world is growing. We're in spaces of transition just as the world is in transition. And when we transition together, we have an opportunity to, it's like we have an opportunity to grow together in a way where we can be more accommodating as things arise. You know what I mean? But at the same time, there is a benefit of hindsight too that we don't necessarily have in the present moment. So trust your intuition, I guess. You're already munching on dark chocolate almonds. I should have got some peanuts. Okay. Number two. We're gonna say you start at 2620. 2618. Just kidding. Okay. What's the Mausolea Oracle of Souls for? Number two. It's funny that I'm using Mausolea Oracle of Souls and four came out for four cards and four is the number of fire, which I attribute to souls. Interesting. Very, 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 very interesting. Okay. I feel like I need to work on my posture. I don't know why I feel like I gotta correct my posture for this one. Like, make way. The queen is coming through. The queen of souls. The king of souls. The monarch. The monarch of souls. You are in their court and you will hold proper posture. I was like, okay. I mean, I'm not really, whatever. I don't know. Is that like the Queen of Wands? If the Queen of Wands comes out, then synonymous with Cindy Man. This is interesting. It's making me think of a dream that I once had, but we'll see if the card. It's making me think of spaces in between spaces. So I had a dream a minute ago that I was like flying and I somehow ended up in a space between spaces. And it was so extremely disorienting, like vertigo, like you wouldn't believe. And to like land or ground myself, to land in that space, to like touch feet to the ground, I had to both like ultra ground myself and become as like small as possible while also simultaneously being like extremely expanded and like open. And that's like, and it it was like difficult. But then when I landed in the space, there was a woman sitting at a table, and it was like picture like white space, but the floor is like checkered. And she's just like, I've been like waiting for you. You made it. Congratulations. And I was like, oh my gosh. And in the dream, like she felt like a part of me that was her whole, like she was an entire being, an entire person, and she felt like a part of me, like a very, very, very big part of me. Like I don't even know how I'm like existing without you. Like what? Anyway, it's making me think of that dream. Dark matter traveling. Oh snap! Oh, I saw your email, Eve. I was I saw your email. Was that yesterday? I worked for like almost like what 11 and a half hours Friday, and then I had to go in Saturday and I didn't reply. Um oh, we get two dudes. Um but I gotta read that article, and of course I would love to read that. Like you already know. So we get the Leopard King and the Poet of Avon or Avon. And these come from two different realms. The Leopard King is sword of law, bravery, self discipline, and faith. So I was saying maybe that's why I changed it to Monarch. Because it ain't just the Queen of Souls. I don't know. And then we have the Poet of Avon, the storyteller, fame, stagnation, and pride. So I wonder if the Poet of Avon, it looks like the Poet of Avon is approaching the Leper King as if he's a jester in the king's court. That is, I mean, he looks like he'd be a king that's hard to make laugh, one that's difficult to entertain. But sometimes the sternest looking of people are the easiest to entertain, right? They're the most jolly. Not jolly. I guess it's kind of like jolly, entertainable. What's a word for like someone who like laughs easily, or someone who like loves to laugh and loves to find that enjoyment? So there is a little bit of not a disconnect necessarily in the person themselves, but it's more like something that we attribute to a status or position. And because we attribute a certain way of being, like, or a monarch, a sovereign will act in this way. So when I approach, I need to be extremely courteous, and like they're going to be like, it's basically like the sword of law, King of Swords and Queen of Swords, because the Queen of Swords more so holds the space of like law and justice, and the King Queen sort of suit. But it's like you wouldn't necessarily think that the sword of law would be someone who's like, bubbly and like loves to laugh and like enjoy life. Like there's a perspective that we put onto something, or a perspective that's put onto us, that might fit a certain type of mold, but it's not binding. Like we don't have to conduct ourselves in a certain way, and others don't have to conduct themselves in a certain way, like just because they hold a title, or if this is just like, if it's more of an energy, um it could be one that we perceive of as like being heavier than it might be. Like Saturn would be a good example. I mean, Saturn has been Saturn for a minute, but Saturn could be a good example. It's like, well, what if Saturn actually isn't the sort of law, sort of energy? What if Saturn is actually a planet, is an energy? I mean, it's Saturn, not Jupiter. I mean, it's Jupiter's father. Gave birth to Jupiter, right? But I mean, when Saturn ruled, though, like that was the golden era. Like everything was prospering, everything was in abundance. You know what I mean? So anyway, before I get too lost, I feel like y'all get the point. You immediately I was literally jovial, yes. Affable, I would have to, like, that's a word I've seen, but I've never quite gotten a definition on it. Yeah. What if Saturn isn't? I was gonna like pull up the article, kind of sort of how I did the Three Kings of the Underworld. I was gonna pull up the article, go through it, like build a spread, read through it, see like what cards are gonna be what. I might still do that later. Um, yeah, and then the poet of, and so I wonder if now that I talk about it a little bit more, it feels like the poet of Avon. I want to say Avon. I'm gonna say Avon. It might be Avon, but I'm gonna say Avon. It feels like the poet of Avon might actually know this king. Like they may be friends, like longtime friends. And if they are, I almost wonder if there's a certain way that they would behave in court It's almost like if they would be putting on a show for the people in court, like in the court more so than like each other. It's like, I'm going to be respectful because to show the people how to respect their monarch and to respect your position as monarch, even though, like we're besties. Or yeah, anyway, let me pull these before because I can keep going. Oh my gosh. That's the only card that came out too. We get the world again. So many like, and this is the world beyond the world. So many world beyond the world energies, but these are from two different realms. And it's interesting because it looks like the poet of Avon. It looks very sunny, and then the leper king looks very like moony. Like if you can see the little rooms like here, like that looks more solar. And then because of the thing on the bottom, that looks more like lunar. But let's see. The Leper King and the Poet of Avon. The Poet of Avon is probably from Anwin, right? Because that would make sense. No, because that was the Celtic Triskelion looking thing, the Triskel looking thing. If they're in here, the realm of Shoal. I am not gonna pronounce that right. Leopard King is in the realm of Shell or Shoal or Sheol or however you pronounce it. So the Poet of Avon must be in the first realm because I looked through all of the other ones. Yep, here he is. It's actually in the first one. Yeah, it's in the first one. So we have the Republic of Pandemonium, where the Poet of Avon is from, and then the realm of Shell, Sheol. It does. And like what's so interesting about this world card is that like she's walking in a space. It's almost like it's inconceivable. Like she is very obviously walking, but there's no ground here. It's all sky and clouds. Like there's no, it's almost like there's no current foundation set for us to even be able to begin to conceptualize what moving on the other side of that portal is like, what walking on it. Like she's, well, I guess she could be flying from our vantage point, but that's just because we can't see the road beneath her feet. I feel like if she was flying, then the way that the cloth drapes would be different, right? Like this would be hanging down more. So then it looking like it's actually resting on the surface there. Or maybe that's just the length of the cut, you know? So the Republic of Pandemonium. No, I'll read this one first. Um, like Irhala or Irkala, is that an H or a K? Like Irhala, the realm of Shoal is considered with bright and dark dualities. It's concerned. The realm of Shoal is concerned with bright and dark dualities, where Irkala focuses on the emotional experience. However, Shoal centers the extreme. Hold up, wait, what? Where Irkala focuses on the emotional experience. However, Shoal centers the experiences of human sin and holiness. To dwell in Sheol is to submit to the judgment of the Absolute, to suffer between the difficult requirements of grace and the easy torments of corruption, and to have the courage to discover where you fall and your overall contribution of good to the world or evil. Oof. What's interesting is though that the first card, Dawn, um, had evaluation, and Dawn has a place where he keeps people's souls to decide, like, whether they board the boat to the great beyond, or whether they become red guards themselves, or whatever. And that Dawn was the first card, the card on the left. The card on the left this time is this Leper King. And I didn't want to necessarily read their entries specifically. The realms, yeah. But let's see what about Pandemonium, the Republic of Pandemonium. The city of Pandemonium and its surrounding lands belong not to the gods, but to the archons of human achievement. These icons bound themselves in life not to gods or faiths, but to human ideals, becoming idols and objects of veneration in their own way. To dwell in pandemonium is to still be bound by the temporal goals and abilities of a human life, whether the glory or success, whether the glory of success or the haunting specter of failure. So this is actually interesting. These realms actually like kind of blend together. Because the Leper King sits in the realm of like how we contribute to the good evil balance in the world and where we sort of fall on that spectrum. And then the Republic of Pandemonium is things bound by human limitation. It's almost like even if it was a deity, god, angelic, higher frequency to be on earth, it would lower itself. It's like it would bind itself, it would put on limitations so that it can exist here. But what's interesting is if that's the case, it feels like the world itself is about to turn into or cycle into something far beyond an old world's ability to perceive and conceive. Either that or these energies are going back home. You know what I mean? It's either that or they're leaving. They're like, yeah, my time is done. I'm gone. Like, take me back to the sky. Take me back to beyond human reach. It makes me think of Turiel, Angel of the Mountain. It's like he could feel their hands grasping at it and falling like an avalanche. Their greed feeds his conviction or something like that. He can't let it fall into their hands. It reminds me of Turiel, Angel of the Mountain, year 2. Kirsty, hello. How are you doing? Excuse me. Oh, yeah. I know Affable. Iniquity, guilt, punishment for iniquity. Oof. So the poet of iniquity? Is the poet of Avon the one that snitched? Is this a snitch? This is the snitch. The poet of Avon is going to snitch to the Leper King. They've been doing this. This person was doing that. He got it all wrote down in his little book. And he keeps the book close to the chest. He's a snitch. I mean, is he a snitch though? Because it's like, do we or do we not do the things that we do? Do we or do we not say the things we say? And should we not be held accountable for what we do and for what we say, especially if it affects and impacts other people? Like, should we be so quick to try to find an excuse for like, oh, I didn't mean to traumatize somebody and be the reason why they now have to go on a whole healing journey because of what I said and did to them? Well, somebody else said it and did it to me. It reminds me of that came out for Capricorn. When I read the signs, it was Capricorn that had this sort of energy. And then Cancer on the other side was more so, I guess, was that Cancer or Leo? Cancer was like the space of who we become because of the environment that we grow up in. And it's like it also spoke to kind of like the last reading. Um, it spoke to the things that we don't get to exhibit or embody or explore within ourselves because the environment isn't conducive to it or because we don't have the time for it or for whatever reason. There are parts of ourselves that we don't get to develop because we don't get the opportunity to embody them. And then Capricorn, on the other hand, was sort of like, I don't remember fully. It did end up turning around by the end of it, but it was like kind of oof. I was like, oof in the beginning of it. Um, is this like low key a little judgment day? E? Snitches get stitches. It does feel like it could be a little judgment day. E. Because the poet of Avon, because of the description of the realm of Sheol, we know that the poet of Avon doesn't only reveal the bad and the corrupt, it also reveals the good and the just. It's an unbiased report. And especially coming off of Don and Morgan Le Fay, the atonement and the just reward, the evaluation and the growth. It's like it does feel like this could be an invitation to enter more fully, to create residence in a whole new world, to like be fully on the other side of that portal. Because what we've had to learn and go through, we've done, like we've met a certain criteria that an old world, an old set of circumstances, an old environment, it's like it can no longer compensate us for our energy. It can no longer vibe with the vibration that we put out. And so things have to begin to shift and change and move. And I think there is in here, there is like an unbiased fairness. It feels like it's not even necessarily justice because it just like is. I mean, I guess it's justice because it's the sort of law, but it doesn't feel like there's necessarily a judgment here. It just is what it is, right? It's like weight classes if you're wrestling. It's like you weigh however much you weigh. It doesn't matter how much of it is fat, how much of it is muscle. If you weigh this much, you wrestle in this weight class. Weight class is no judgment on health or fitness or anything. It's literally just the weight class. You weigh this much, so you wrestle with other people who weigh this much. And it's a way of like I don't want to say correcting the reflection, but it's very, I feel like I've done it well enough to describe it. So this is interesting. And I think with the affable, thank you, Holly, and jovial, thank you, Holly, energy of the Leopard King, it is, and because of the world, this is the world card that is fully beyond the portal. She is like draped in purple, the color of the crown chakra and spirits and all that is difficult for us to perceive. She's draped in it, walking in it. You know what I mean? On the other side of it. And it's interesting because in the last one, there was an energy, and the Empress is at the bottom of the deck, by the way. But there was an energy of her, of like Morgan Le Fay trying to get Dawn to come to her side. And it's almost one of those like, you know, you did this on your own merit and achievement. Evaluations are done on an individual basis. There's no grandfathering. There's no, not grandfathering. There's no like you can't bring your kids type of energy. Like we're all responsible for ourselves and we're all evaluated as ourselves. And that's another reason why it would be important for the Morgan Le Fay energy to give the Dawn energy the time it needs. Because when it's evaluated, like you're not going to be there, we aren't going to be there, no one else is going to be there for us when we're evaluated. Like that's when the work that we do personally, that's when the work of the individual shines in the absence of everyone else. And it's interesting because it separates the self from the world and it makes the world in some ways a reflection of the space that the self holds. I didn't necessarily expect this, but I don't hate it. And I think again with the Cancer Capricorn energy of like allowing ourselves to experience and develop parts of ourselves that we didn't necessarily have the opportunity to. I think that also came out, that energy came out a little bit in the previous one too. Card one. I love that I'm getting two for these. Anyway, sorry. And like again, like this is the energy of us sort of embodying those things. Before, when she was at the portal, like there was a certain amount of access that we had, and the cloth was like draping up. It was like crawling up. It makes me think of I think it's Phanuel, Angel of Truth, but I think it's the Phanuel in the year two, the one who waits at the throne for us to come to drape us in a cloak. And that's the same cloak that Semyaza is wearing. Semyaza, the one that discovered himself, that found his truth, and that was pride. Semyaza is the angel of pride. The poet of Avant is coming out with pride. Fame, stagnation, and pride. And it's like, it's not pride in a distorted, twisted way. It's not pride, the deadly sin pride. It's pride in like knowing who you are. So maybe it isn't even necessarily about correcting your posture in the presence of someone else. Maybe it's you correcting your posture in the presence of yourself. It's just like, holding yourself, high, or not holding yourself high, but it's like, it's not having to downplay or whatever. Let me stop. Sorry. Eve, I saw your comment about the chili peppers when Rob got the Guardian of the South, Spirit Keeper of the South, and you were like, "Ooh, summer weather, perfect for growing more chili peppers." Oh, that made me laugh. But it's again, and it's like it's draped in this knowing now. It's no longer something at the border. It's no longer like halfway sort of attainable. And again, that was the thing that came out at the end of card one. It's like where if it's more internal, the internal feminine has done the growth, the healing, the journey, but the internal masculine hasn't yet really been in a space to embody it. Like the internal masculine is still embodying it, it's still doing it. The internal masculine is still in a space of beginning to show and exhibit. And it's interesting because I can't remember if it was at the beginning of this one or at the end of the last one, when it's like there's something that has to like matriculate and permeate, and after it permeates through something it has to react, and as it's reacting, that's when the balance begins to shift. And that's all of these threes. Three is the catalyst. It's something that motivates a change in something else, but it in and of itself overall is not changed. The thing is what the thing is. We are changed for going through it, or we are changed because of our proximity to it, because of what it brings us to, but the thing itself remains. And if it changes, it will be recovered by the end of the overall reaction. Um, but eventually, like the more we live life, the more we embody, the more we discover how we operate in that and hold it more fully. And maybe that's another thing, again, going off of what has to be lowered. Um, it's that point where we get more and more comfortable embodying because we know how to do it. We know how to hold it and we know how to maintain it. It's just like a muscle, you flex it, you work it out, you get better at it. And then it's just like, bloop, oh my gosh, everything is different. It's like a whole new world, right? Yes, very how you conduct yourself when everyone's watching. I guess when everyone's watching and when no one's watching. And maybe it's the difference between the two. Interesting. Okay. I don't want to dwell here too long because it's the other side of the world card. She's basically the high priestess. So 55, 55 is card 3. Boom, boom. I'm time stamping it now because it was a cute timestamp and I was done with card 2. Okay. Well, card 3, we're gonna start apparently with the tarot. It's the Queen of Cups. This Queen of Cups is interesting because she sits at the border. It looks like this Queen of Cups is about to step into the water. Like she's about to get off of her throne. She's about to stand up because you can see her foot. It's like already almost primed. I don't know if she's gonna like try to dip her toe in it before she just goes in like full hog. This is interesting though because it's like the Queen of Cups is one person when she's on land. It's almost like it's easy to be a Queen of Cups when you're on the land. It's easier to be a Queen of Cups when you're in the desert because as long as you've got a little bit of water, you're rich. Like you are water royalty in an area that gets none. But to be water royalty in the middle of an ocean, to be water royalty in a sea or in a lake, to be water royalty in the water, I don't. It's almost. I don't want to say it's us holding ourselves to a higher standard necessarily. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. 55, 55. That's a lot of change. And then 4 5s is a 20, which is judgment. So this Queen of Cups, though, it also feels like instead of us holding ourselves to a higher standard in that way, because I know anyway, it feels more like it's us coming into an awareness of how who we are and how we are can lead to what we experience in a way. It's like the Queen of Cups realizes something, and maybe this is again, it's going off of that world card energy, it's going off of the internal masculine, feminine energy, especially coming off of the Poet of Avon and the Leopard King, because the Poet of Avon and the Leopard King, we're not the only involvement we have in that is that like we do the thing and then we're observed. It doesn't speak to us necessarily in the way that this does, because it feels like this is the Queen of Cups realizing and recognizing something within herself. Cups are the essences, so it's already there in the soul, but And with it being the queen is the teacher of essences, well, we're going to take the teacher out. With it being, it is a self actualization. Um, but it feels like this is like the moment of choice to do that. It's like, it's before we fully commit, because here's the little bit of water, there's the whole body of it. Before we fully commit to something, and I don't know why, for some reason it feels like other people are coming in. Like if I make this choice and decision, like what is some, it's like if you have someone in your life who always reminds you of your past. It's like, oh, remember when you used to do this? Like, oh, don't think you're better than me because you used to do this. And like, yeah, key word being used to. Check the tense. It's not something that I still do. It's called growth, honey. Maybe you should try it. Sorry. But it's like if it's not something that you currently still do, like what does it matter? You're bringing up the past, trying to make someone feel a certain type of way. When in all actuality, if that was someone's past, then they should be proud. That's what a healthy sense of pride is based upon. Egocentrism and egotism is like when there's a inflated sense of pride, when we think we do more than we've actually done. But if you have a past for someone to remind you of, and that's no longer who you are, you should be proud. Like that, it's a testament to what you've done. So it's like to that person, they're trying to use it or bring it up to like tear you down. But in my mind, it's like that's something that should only build you up because that's not who you are anymore. You know what I mean? So let them be mad. I don't. I think also another lesson with the Queen of Cups is just like it's that point where the Queen of Cups is the one who has to learn when to live her life for herself. The Queen of Cups can be so others focused that she sacrifices a lot. And maybe this is the point also where it's like, this is the time where I have to do the thing for me. I can't allow this opportunity to pass me by. I can't allow this moment to pass me by. I can't sacrifice a life full of experiences and people and things that I like so desire to continue to appease a past that only seeks to take from me. Again, like it's just the point where she has to make the decision, like is this something that I do for myself regardless of how certain people think about it. And maybe that's when someone was like, oh, you think you're better than me, well you used to do this. And it's like, no, like I don't, number one, I don't do that anymore. Number two, I don't think I'm better than you. This is something that I'm doing for me. You have the same choices to do things for you. You have the same choice to heal, you have the same choice to grow, you have the choice to face the things just like I did. And it feels like there's maybe this like chain of like maybe before you make the choices and decisions that you made, there was someone who made a choice or decision to turn their life around. And you're like, if they, it's like, I don't know, you just reach the point where you do it for you or you don't. And I refer you back to number one, all things in their own time. So you can't force, and maybe because the second one was more about the individual coming into a whole new experience because of what they've accomplished. Whereas the first one was about like trying to get other people to be there too. It's like, maybe when you make that choice and decision to just move on for you, that's when you start to encounter feedback. And it may be sort of like nasty things from people that you wouldn't even necessarily expect. And maybe it's not, it's like it can be malicious. It can be maliciously intended but with a less malicious root, right? Maybe it's like they don't want to lose you. And this isn't necessarily in the extremely like narcissist, like empath narcissist way. It's like maybe you are someone who's important to them. and they don't want to lose you. They don't want to live life without you. But at the same time, there are still things that, for whatever reason, they can't face. And it's not to put like a judgment on anybody. It's just like, we all have choices and decisions to make, and we all have things that have various weight. There are factors in our own personal lives that hold various weights. And so I don't know if that's like when someone becomes like toxic because they don't want to lose you rather than like them just being toxic. And yeah, I watched a video. I actually referenced it recently. And they were like, there's a difference between people who are toxic and people who like have toxic tendencies, like people who behave in toxic ways. That toxic behavior could be motivated by something rather than like toxic just being someone's default. You know what I mean? But at the same time, for us as the individuals, like we have to make the choice and decision for ourselves. And it feels a little cold in that way. Maybe that's when the Queen of Cups turns into the Queen of Swords. When water turns to air, and it's like, I have to do this for me. Like, I still love you, I still care for you, but I can't keep myself here because I'm not trying to take myself out of the game. You know what I mean? Anyway. Do we not get? So I'll give it 5 shuffles. If nothing comes out, I'll just move on to the 4th. Okay. We get 1, and it's Hathor, Mistress of Harmony. That's what I was gonna say. So we had a 3-6-9 completion in the first one, which was interesting because in the second one it was a 3-6. There was a Cindy Math 6, which is harmony, right? And that energy, it wasn't a harmony that like brings in a peace, and it wasn't a harmony that brings in tranquility. It was a harmony that's very like 6 of Pentacles. It's reciprocal. If you find yourself in this space, the world reflects that space. And so if the world changes around you, that's because maybe you found yourself in a certain space. You know what I mean? It's the point where, and it's interesting because in the first one, the vision catching up to fantasy, or vision catching up to fantasy, was in the Hanged Man. But it's like in the second one, it was caught up, or it was more equal. It's harmony in the sense of like harmonizing, in the sense of leveling out, reaching an equilibrium, not harmonizing in a way of like bringing a peace. It's not bringing anything that's not already there, because that would be a change. That would be 5 and not 6, or maybe 7, right? Anyway, back to Thor. Very volatile. This is mediation, communication, and culture. It's interesting that mediation and communication are the ones that come out. The exile is at the bottom of the deck. Forsaken soldier. Strategy, failure, and trauma. I accidentally flipped to the bottom of the deck. I was intentionally not looking at the bottom of the deck, but it just happened. It gives me my 2 cards, so that's fine, because only 1 card came out. Here's the communication and the mediation with the exile, with the one who feels forsaken. So yeah, that's what this Queen of Cups is. And it feels like it's all of that, because sometimes when we make those choices and decisions to explore parts of ourselves, or to really make changes for those who knew us and grew attached to us when we were who we were, there may be a disconnect when we become who we are. And I guess if there is a conversation, or if there are conversations, or just since this is like intended, I don't know if it is what it is. It's just to bring an element of compassion to those conversations, to not take things personally. And in the same vein that hurt people, I guess it's like one of the ways that hurt people hurt people. And maybe it's like to know that someone's hurt or pain or trauma is speaking when they talk to us in a certain way. It doesn't excuse the things that they say. It doesn't make any of it okay, but it does put it into perspective. But again, here, the Queen of Cups has a choice to make. It's that point where it's like, are we going to continue to live our lives for other people, or are we going to live our lives for us? And it's not that we can't do both, but it's this question is only a question when there's discord, when there's a disconnect. The question isn't a question when we can do both. I mean, I guess it's still a question. Um, and so maybe also with the land being featured in here, it's drawing boundaries or redrawing boundaries with people. And so maybe it's not like a clean cut. Maybe it's not a complete disconnect. Maybe we just like, we establish boundaries. And if those boundaries aren't respected, then maybe that's when um, more separation would be when we think about it. But it feels like there is, because of Hathor with the mediation, like there is an element of compassion here. There is an element of understanding here. But also, that's the Queen of Cups. That's why she isn't the Queen of Swords, because she still has that compassion. Her choice might be the same. The way she words it might be different. Her approach might be different. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the choice might be the same. And it's interesting that now we're coming into an energy of us sort of holding law within our own lives. It's like as we hold law within our own lives, the poet of Avon goes to the Leper King and reflects that or communicates that to the Leper King who sort of sits on the seat of justice, who sits on the seat of harmony in terms of the, because justice is like it's something fitting. So justice, I feel like for us, justice would be a great energy when we're getting less than what we deserve, because then it raises things. But justice can be a not as great energy if we're getting more than we deserve, because then it lowers it. And so it's not good or bad, the raising or the lowering. It's us, where we set the bar. And that's the only part of things that we can control. And also, like, we're not being asked to do anything more than that, which is again why the element of pride sort of like comes in, and where like the work and stuff comes in. It's interesting that the third one was like so not necessarily self-focused. It wasn't self-centric, and the third one was very self-centric. It's almost like the second one was the world viewing you. I guess that, yeah, which was the more masculine side. And then the third one was you in the world, the more feminine side. And I feel like this is basically, in a way, like that's how at least some of the zodiacs worked the last time I read zodiacs. It's like there was the one axis that was like the top and the bottom, and then there were the other two that were sort of like the in between, or not the top and the bottom. Like this is A and B, or A and one, right? They're both the first. One was A, the other one was one, and then the other one was like the B through Z and the two through infinity, because numbers don't stop. But numerologically, the two through the nine. You know what I mean? And then we just sort of like there's the wobble, there's the in between. It's not a wobble, it's just the in between. So maybe 4 will bring us both again. A plus B to see your way through. Is that Pythagorean? A squared plus B squared equals C squared. Pythagoras. For this one, I'm actually gonna just. Oh well. Oh my gosh! Look, this happened the first time too. Am I gonna keep this? I guess yeah. The Queen of Cups came back out. So the first 2 brought the world. The second 2 bring the Queen of Cups. I'll say 1, 15, 30, because that should be about when it came out. This time, the bottom of the deck, I don't even think I looked at the bottom of the deck last time. It's the Page of Pentacles and the Page of Wands and the world and the sun. Okay, all right. So I'm taking all the cards, but I've seen these 2. I feel like these 2 have been coming out together recently. The Page of Pentacles and the Page of Wands. And that's like, it's new beginnings that require a lot of effort. It's like it's something big, so it requires effort to make it possible. But with the Page of Wands, it's like it's work that we love to do. It's effort that we see as worth it. And so we never get bored. And it's like the Page of Pentacles is an energy of stick to itiveness. The Page of Pentacles is going to get it done, but it might not necessarily be enjoyable. The Page of Wands is going to have fun. So if it gets boring, then they're out. And like it's this perfect complement to accomplishing things. And speaking of perfect complements to accomplishing things, this world card is there again. So in the 4th one, we get the Queen of Cups in the world, I guess. And then under the world, what is she walking to? What is she walking towards? It's the sun. A fully grown. And look, he's wearing the red. She's wearing the purple. From root to crown. I love this. From root to crown sunlight. Gorgeous. I was going to say with the Page of Pentacles, though, that because number 3 was more so about us as individuals maybe having to separate the conversations of separation. This one feels like now there are conversations of cooperation. This is what we're going to be working with. And apparently girl is going to lead to the sun card after the world. So hello. And again, it's like now we finally see where this is going. There's the ground. It's literally under the sun. Look at that sun. I don't know. And another thing that this is the second sun. It's matured. It's like in the old world, it could not mature. With the Leper King and the Poet of Avon, with their realms of Sheol and Pandemonium, mostly with the realm of Pandemonium, it's like how everything had to dilute itself. Everything had to lower itself. It's like for it to come into the world, it had to be bound. There was no way for it to exist as it is. And so that's why on the sun card, it was always a baby. That's why the inner child is always a child. It doesn't evolve or grow or mature at all. But now it's something that can like fully come into its own. It's an adult now. And world card, she's like well into this, well on the other side. On this side, here, let me just find it. I will show you what's on the other side. That way you don't have to use your imagination. Is that a cup? Oh, snap. Oh, snap. Okay, all right. I'll take those cards. Sorry. I don't even know what accent that was. So this is what it is. And you can see that the sun is more intense in the second one too, because of the reds up here. It's like here it could only be a baby. There it wasn't able to fully, but now it's like matured. And this, the baby sun was in between the other Queen of Cups and the Strength card. So it feels like because she's dancing, but her face, it feels like she's not in it. This is almost the epitome of like going through the motions. And then it's like we reach that point where it doesn't necessarily work anymore, where we can't pretend anymore. And this feels like this goes back to the first one. This is Morgan Le Fay before her atonement or before her. This is Morgan Le Fay before she comes into herself, her new self. This is the Morgan Le Fay of legend. This is the Morgan Le Fay of story. But maybe Morgan Le Fay has also gone through her own transformation and she's no longer who she used to be. Don't know. Because it feels like this is like the divine putting us in positions, like this is the feminine that lives in the masculine world, right? So it's like that's the divine putting us in positions where we get to come into our strength and where we get to come into our power, but simultaneously at the same time, see, there's an alignment in that because it's like as the divine is encouraging this strength from us, we are encouraging this strength from ourselves. And it's like this is the point where we're no longer, oops, not this, sorry. That's the point where we're no longer fighting it, where we come into that. Because it's just like we can't keep doing this anymore. Like we want a sun that is more radiant, that is more all encompassing, that's more mature. We want a sun that like we can experience, that we can grow old with, and not just like a fleeting moment here or there. Because that's the swing of the pendulum, pandemonium, the pendulum and pandemonium. That's the swing of the pendulum. It's like things will be good and things will be bad because that's the balance that's sort of maintained. But there is another side to that, or there is more beyond that, right? Um, and that's what the poet of Avon is going to the Leper King about. Because again, it's like the realm of Sheol reflects our balance. And so because we swing, the world swings. But if we can put ourselves more on one side, it's like reducing the, it's like if you have a pendulum and you push it with a lot of force, it's going to swing with a lot of force and it's going to return with a lot of force. But if you use less force, it stabilizes. But we're stabilizing it like on one side or on the other side instead of having such a wide berth. So it's like it's narrowing things down. What's grind getting blubbery? Fine, fierce, fabulous. Ooh, that almost came out. Almost. I kind of wouldn't be surprised if Lilith came out, but she probably won't. So I don't know why either. Okay. Oop, oop, oop. Oh, that's 3 cards. They didn't like look. They're on my arm. If I can get them back into the deck. Oh, nope, that one's on the table. That one's on the table. I'll just take them. Goodness. Oh, snap. Look at the bottom of the deck. The Morrigan. And the Morrigan is interesting because of Morgan Le Fay. The Morrigan is the weaver of fate. Antipathy, introspection, and opposition. And it's interesting that we return to the realm that we started with. Um, I had different realms because the first two were both in the Celtic looking one. The second one had one in Pandemonium and one in Soul. Hathor was in a different realm. Um, and now we return to the first one. Which is again, it's like it feels like the harmonization of strength here speaks to that in a way. So the first card is the Martyr, Matron of the Blind, honesty, shame, and restitution. She's in what? Is that what the domain of Pandemonium looks like? No, she's in a different realm. She's in a different realm. I thought she was in. Ew, 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 ugh, ugh, ugh. Sorry. I just cleared my throat and that's gross. It tastes like almost floral. I don't know if like there's pollen in the air or something. Ew, ew. It tastes like flowers. Ugh. Ugh. Sorry. It's in this one, the Martyr. It's in the Empire of Irkala. So this is the one that's similar to the realm of Sheol where the Leper King was from. So, a realm of bright and dark dualities. In Urkala, sorrow and joy are shared and balanced in equal measure. And it's interesting because of the pendulum that swings both ways, right? Sorrow and joy are shared and balanced in equal measure. The gods of Urkala value obligation and sacrifice. Few who enter this domain are ever permitted to leave again. To dwell in Urkala is to accept the obligations of society, to seek a simple finite existence, and to understand the balance between one's rational mind and one's emotional experience. Twitty! Hey, Kathy. Oh, I didn't even see you come in the first time. The third musketeer has arrived. Tastes like flowers, smells like roses. Maybe I'll get all of them. The Martyr, Matron of the Blind. What I love about this reminds me, it makes me think of Tamiel, Angel of the Unseeing. And it says that few who enter Irkala escape. But with the Martyr being the Matron of the Blind, it's almost like it's because it's Irkala isn't something that you escape by sight. It's almost like your sight impedes your ability to escape. And this is very um it's like the bane of the skeptic. It's the bane of the one who has to see to believe. Because in Soul, with, you know, and the poet of Avon, the energy of the second one, it's like, because you believe, now you will see. And so it's like, this is literally faith, to believe in the thing that you can't see, and then to have that belief met. That's the only way to escape Urkala. Because if you continue to observe, the pendulum just swings in equal measure. It's balanced on both sides. And so the world itself, the environment itself, will not give you an escape to it, because that's not the nature of this realm. And it's a little bit South Node Libra E in that way. The second card is Dawn, the Red Shepherd, just reward, evaluation, and respite. Dawn came out in the first one. Dawn came out with Morgan Le Fay. The Morgan is at the bottom, which again goes to sort of emphasize in the first one how there's one side of the energy that's been making progression and movement. The feminine side of the energy has been making progression and movement. The belief side of the energy has been making progression and movement, while the sight, the seeing, the masculine has been in its space of transition. And feminine and masculine transition are probably inherently different, because they're different sort of aspects and sides to the duality or the dualistic nature of energy, the perceived and then the felt, the material and then the immaterial. And then the last one is Thanatos, Warden of Dis, bringing in yet another realm. I think we've seen a representative from every single realm except for, hold up, wait. Let's go through. We'll go through it and we'll see. So in the Republic of Pandemonium, we saw the Poet of Avon. In the realm of Hades, now we see Thanatos. In the afterworld of Anwin, we get both the Morgan. Well, she's at the bottom of the deck, but we got Morgan Le Fay and Dawn. Morgan Le Fay and Dawn are both from Anwin. From the Empire of Urkala, now we get the Martyr. Lilith is from the Empire of Urkala. So maybe that's why I was like, I feel like Lilith will come out, but she won't. Somebody else from her realm didn't come out, though. From the Dominion of Duat, we had Hathor. Now you can hear Chino. And then from the realm of Sheol, we had the Leper King. So yeah, we've gotten a representative from every single realm, which is interesting. And it's especially interesting because the first time I used these cards, everything was in one realm. And like the environmental energy and the encouragement and the distraction were from outside of that realm, but everything else was in that realm. And that was the realm of Hades. We saw Thanatos in the realm of Hades. So we have the Martyr, the way out of Urkala, being honesty, shame, and restitution. Shame, though, just like pride didn't feel like the deadly sin, shame is feeling like a recognition of the choices and decisions that we've made in the past and of our behavior. And this is shame being an opportunity for us to make different choices and decisions in the future. This is shame being us being like, like last time I made this choice, I felt like this, and I don't really want to feel like that anymore. So this time I'm going to have to make another choice. And again, this is coming out with the Queen of Cups. who for right now, she's like, this is the space where we have to start living our lives for us. Also the space of when we are no longer who we used to be. Because last time we saw the Queen of Cups is like, remember who you used to be, and look who's at the bottom of the deck, the Morgan, who we used to be. Um, but it's like that. It's like that's what shame can be used for, not to beat ourselves up, not to for us to feel even worse, but it can be used just to be like, do I want to go down this path again? And I don't have to feel some type of way. It's just like it just is what it is. Like I don't want to feel like that anymore. So I'm not gonna make this choice. Even though a part of me wants to, I know that it's like the regret buyer's remorse is gonna set in immediately. Buyer's remorse as soon as I click purchase, before it even arrives at my door. I already know I don't need it. I already know I'm not really gonna use it. I already know I don't want it. I already know it's a waste. And I'm trying to save up for something right now. So I'm just not gonna make that purchase, you know. Not that I don't love collecting things that I'm not gonna use, but I'm trying to do something right now. So I'm gonna pass. Hey Steph, how you doing? You feel like your own cheers on comedy. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name, yeah. Oh, because everyone's like, hi Steph. I got you. And then we have Don again. Just reward, evaluation, and respite. Don's the only one that makes another appearance as himself. This is Don. Don is looking like a shepherd. It is the shepherd, the red shepherd, with the matron of the blind. There is like a lost sheep energy. So Don is almost feeling like um Don is feeling like the genius loci of the realm of Irkala. Don is feeling like it's symbolizing how like the swing of the pendulum gets us to stay. And that came out last time I was live. I'm pretty sure it's like how somebody has to win the lottery, somebody has to hit it big at Vegas. Because if they didn't, people would stop doing it. It's like even if our chances are extremely slim, as long as they're not zero, somebody has to win, right? And it's that temptation of this energy. It's the temptation of get out of your old life quick that gets us to spend the money that, speaking of spending money, speaking of buying things you don't need, um, it's like, man, like I gambled away all my money to pay my bills because I was trying to get a better life. It's the shepherd that tries to, Don is the one who goes off after the lost sheep. But again, that's why the martyr being the matron of the blind, it's almost Underground Railroady a little bit. It is. The martyr is kind of like the Harriet Tubman a little bit, and Don is kind of like the slave catchers. Um, but with Thanatos, like it's bringing an end to that. It's literally completion. Like we're done. We're done. So we're gone. Completion, support, and expediency. Like things go quick. And I think part of the energy of the expediency is because when we're outside of the realm of Irkala, the pendulum, again, going back to tightening, narrowing the focus, the pendulum doesn't have to swing back all the way. We're no longer in a realm where this is the law. This is the realm of that law. This is the law of that realm. And so we have to wait for the pendulum to swing back and have to wait for it to come all the way back to keep moving. But with the energy of expediency, since we're no longer in a realm where this is law, we can do this. And then it's like things just like they speed up. You know what I mean? It's like it's going like fully automatic. Oof, these references. And it's interesting too because Thanatos and Dawn, because of the first when I unboxed this. Thank you again, Eve, for gifting me these. Um, one second. Because of the first reading, Thanatos is the warden of Dis. Let me read. Because like we had Dawn and then the mother of Dawn. And it's like Nyx came out. Thanatos' mom is Nyx. And then we had Dawn and the mother of Dawn. So that put Thanatos and Dawn on these like parallels where it's like we had Dawn and the mother of Dawn, and then we had Thanatos and Nyx, which was the mother of Thanatos. You know what I mean? Um, and so this, it feels like our experience in general. Like there's the energy that tries to keep us where we are. There's the energy that tries to liberate us. And then there's us making choices and decisions in the middle, not always being able to trust our sight, not always being able to rely on the appearance of things. Sometimes we have to dig a little bit deeper, and we have the Queen of Cups, who is pre High Priestess energy. We have the Queen of digging a little bit deeper, the Queen of the intuition and the insight, the Queen of the deeper meaning, the Queen of beneath the surface. And it's like the divine is relying on us being able to see beneath the surface again with the harmonization of strength, no longer fighting it. And because we no longer fight it, now we can come into a space of true sort of power because we're no longer just going through the motions, even though we're likely we clearly don't want to. Like, look at her. If you look at her, you're like, oh, she's dancing and she has her cups. She's having a good time. But this is the Queen of Cups. She's not the Three of Cups. She's by herself. She's dancing on her own. She's right in the corner. Why can't you see her? She's giving it her all, but she's not the one that anybody's taking home. So she just dances alone. And she's like, you know what? If I'm going to dance alone, I can dance alone at home. Like, but it's like it depends and it relies on us making the journey, making the trip, coming into a space where the sun energy can be more mature. And it was it was right here. This is when we narrow the pendulum. This is when we escape Irkala. Because the law of Irkala is that for just as good as things are going to be, they're going to be equally as bad and they're going to continue to swing. That's literally the law of that realm. And I think it came out recently, it's like with the law of attraction and the law of manifestation. I don't remember which reading it is, but it's like there are different, like each realm has its own sort of set of laws. And there are some laws that permeate all realms, but there's also a hierarchy to law. There are clauses and subsections and stuff like that, right? Addendums, amendments. And so the law might play out differently. And again, we've had a representative from every single realm. I think we've had one come out for every realm except for Anwin, because we got both Don and Morgan Le Fay. So I guess we'd be primarily in Anwin. So let me read that one again. Wrong book. Abraham the Justice. Wait. The Afterworld of Anwin. The domain of Anwin is the ancient hunting ground of the gods, a land of myth and folklore. It is both wild and unpredictable, and bound by traditions, customs, and rituals as old as time itself. To dwell in Anwen is to be both bound and wild, ancient and childlike, fair and bestial. And I feel like the duality in that, again, it sort of speaks to Irkala. I mean, all of these realms spoke of duality. Um, and they probably all do in this deck. I would imagine that though, because I didn't read the realm that Hathor came from. I would imagine um, the realm of Hades is less dualistic. So I guess in that way, it's interesting that, but again, that sort of sets the scale for everything, right? That's the world we live in. Things are both good and not good, great and not great, amazing and devastating. And because that's the way the world is, again, it can be hard for a lot of us to perceive a world that doesn't have that swing of the pendulum, that is more solidly good. But it's like we reflect the world and the world reflects us, but there may be a delay. It's not necessarily an instantaneous reflection. And I think that's where Dawn, that's what makes the martyr so important, the matron of the blind. When we're in the space of transition, and there's just like there's a space of transition between the internal feminine and the internal masculine, there's a space of transition between the external feminine and the external masculine. Like just because we heal and go through journeys internally doesn't necessarily mean that we're immediately a whole new person, doesn't necessarily mean that when we're encountered with situations we immediately feel completely different. Like it takes time for it to, I keep wanting to say matriculate, but that's not the word, to permeate and to react and for that balance to shift. It takes time for it to break down. Like it's like first it has to dissolve and then it has to permeate and then it reacts, and the more it reacts the more that balance shifts. And so like there's the internal lag and then there's the external lag. And again, this for the skeptic, for the one who has to see to believe, it makes things more difficult because it's like I'm doing this, I'm doing that, I'm doing like so many things, but like my life isn't changing, my reality isn't changing, so I'm gonna give up. I'm just like, if I'm gonna do all this work and nothing's gonna change, I might as well have fun. I might as well go back and be this girl because dancing on my own at home is boring. I might as well like go out and And I would say it's to give it time, but again, like that's something that came out, I think, in the first one. When that growth is synchronized, when we transition, when we are transitioning as the world is transitioning, there's something beautiful, there's some beautiful opportunity that lies in that unique set of circumstances. And I think that's why all those threes came out at first. So many threes that it was a nine, right? But nine, it's like nine is not 10. Nine, it makes it feel like we hit a wall. Nine is almost, because of that, the rate limiting step. It's the bottleneck. It's like we capped out, we tapped out. So, whereas one is like, that's when it's like, it's unlimited. It's just like all rushing in all at once. So that was interesting. That was a thing. I'm glad I did it, I guess. Take it as it resonates when it resonates, as it resonates. Ouija boards, I also stay away from. I also stay away from Ouija. They had one, like you could check it out as a board game at one of the dorms on campus. I was like, oh my gosh, And it was when I was an RA, one of my residents was like, oh, for Halloween, we should get the Ouija board. I said, no, we are not inviting spirits onto this floor because I'm not. I'm trying to make it through the year. Okay. I'm not trying to all of a sudden, like, this is going on in the room and this person had to leave because they got sick and this person just disappeared. And no, I don't need that. I don't need that energy. I don't have to invite that into my life. You know what I mean? And maybe it could be different if it's used and utilized in the proper ways. But I'm also like not interested in taking that, like I'm just not intrigued. I just like I don't want to know. A card flipped over. The exile. Strategy, failure, and trauma. The bottom of the deck is the matron of the blind. See, that's what makes the blind so. It's like just as Irkala is the bane of the skeptic, the matron of the blind is the bane of Irkala. Because Irkala depends on, like, the whole trap of Irkala is that the person in that realm fixates on the swing of the pendulum. And it's like the law of the realm itself establishes the trap because it's gonna swing both ways. So it's like if you think that nothing really changes or that there's always gonna be an extreme, it's like because that's literally how the realm works. And so if you're like if you're judging and evaluating things solely on like good is happening or bad is happening, and that is an immediate reflection of where I am and what my progress is. And it's like, okay, but good and bad are going to happen. So if good and bad are going to happen, regardless, almost indiscriminately, what sense does it make to use that to gauge one's like progress or healing? You know what I mean? Because like it's gonna happen. So it's like we almost set ourselves up for failure when we utilize something that has its own rhythm and cycles and nature to like what's the word, to milestone like our progress and movement. It's like we set ourselves up for failure in that way. But again, that's why the matron of the blind, that's why the one who sees beyond the immediate perception is the bane to that itself. And again, it's kind of Underground Railroady. But that almost came out when I used the magic cards, right? That's literally involuntary employment. That's literally the masked bandits. That's literally the obscura. And I just lost it, but it's that energy. Because involuntary employment, it was like when we look at the way things are, and because we observe reality around us, we're convinced of that truth, and we fall into a rhythm and cycle that matches that rhythm and cycle. We harmonize to that. And it's like when we harmonize with that, that's when we sort of consent to living a life that matches that. And that's what makes it harder for us to break out of it. That's what I told them. I told Keres, I was like, you need to let your daughter go. Let Persephone go, girl. She's grown. Hello, she ain't a child no more. Let her live her life. Oh, I would hate to be an immortal god with a helicopter parent like Keres. Imagine literally being immortal and never getting to live your own life. Woo! Anyway, sorry. What am I apologizing for? I apologize to the. I don't. Honestly, I don't. But there are good things to Carius and Demeter, and there are bad things to Hades. So sure, I don't know. Anyway, I forgot where that was going, but that did make me think of the involuntary. Oh yeah, because the realm of Irkala and the one who has to see to believe. That's literally involuntary employment. Um, and maybe that's why, because I remember in the forest there was that one tower of light where the mage's assistant was, guarded by the angel of modernity, that it felt like nothing of the realm could touch. Time itself couldn't touch that spire. And like that's where the matron of the blind will sort of like lead us. It will lead us through the forest to that spire. But it requires faith in things that you can't see. And I love that immediately the last card we get is another 3. Double Dutch is tricky. Wait, what? Got to keep your eyes on them notes. On the ropes. Oh, I said I saw notes. Double Dutch. You're talking about Double Dutch. I'm so bad at Double Dutch. I'm so bad at Double Dutch. I tried. I tried. And in elementary school and music class we would play, I would make it like 2. If I was lucky, 3. Never more than 4. And I'm like, oh, how do you do this? Excuse me. Your coordination for sports is not as. I feel like my coordination is very like hit or miss. Like sometimes I'll be oddly coordinated. Most of the time, I'm a butterfingers fumbling, oblivious mess. And sometimes it's just like because I'm not really paying attention to where I'm going. Like my body is moving and my mind is like, who knows where. So, anyway. Oh, metaphoring the pendulum metaphor. Gotcha, gotcha. Oof. Oh, oof. Yeah, that would make sense because not everybody is good at double dutching. So to fall or to find and establish a rhythm outside of the natural rhythm of the realm, like maybe that's in between. I don't want to say eclipse tunnels, but I know Russ is going through the eclipse tunnels right now. But like that's the space in between worlds. When we break out of a rhythm, we establish a new rhythm. The poet of Avon tells the Leper King, and then we find ourselves in a space that matches that new rhythm. But the downside is that, like, as we're born into this world, we don't necessarily determine the rhythm of life that we're born into. And so as we grow and develop, we just naturally fall into it. You know what I mean? And that's what makes it harder to break. But again, like that's why it's like that's what the divine tries to do for us. But when we don't necessarily have that perspective, or when there's attachments involved, be they emotional, physical limitations, whatever, it's harder. So in that strength, we fight the divine, but it's trying to work us to a harmonization point where we get to see what it's actually doing for us. And as we see what it's doing for us, it doesn't necessarily make the things that we go through easier, but the perspective makes it worth it. That page of wands is the page of pentacles. Because when we see the work as worth it, then it becomes less burdensome. It doesn't become easier necessarily. It's like the thing that would make the work easier is our attitude when we approach it and our attitude when we do it. And that's what I tried to do for myself this past week because I was by myself for 3 days and I was like, this is so much work for one person. But I was like, you know what? I'm going to be gone for a whole week at the end of May when I go on my vacation, when I go on my trip. So I can survive 3 days in exchange for that week. And I just had to keep reminding myself of that. Some days it helped, other days it was still sucky, but I was like, I got to do it. So I'm just going to do it. You know what I mean? I kind of reached a point of apathy with the work. I was just like, it has to be done. So I'm going to do it. And then it kind of got better. I was like, you know what? This isn't so bad. Anyway. Anyway. There's always going to be another mountain. So I hope you all have an excellent whenever you see this. Oh, the card that came out. It's the Hanged Man. But it's the Hanged Man that's off of the tree. He's there's the rope. Speaking of your jump rope. Or he's like, one rope is too easy. How can I make things more difficult now? I know I can add 2 ropes. I'll add 2 ropes and then I'll tie myself back to the tree and I'll learn that. It's like when somebody retires, but there's like free time creates a void and they're like they get bored, so then they go back to work. It's like you're already retired. You don't have to work anymore. Why are you doing this? In a way. Cindy! I thought about you the other day. I hope you're well, Cindy. It's the hangman that's off the tree. Maybe the hangman is ready to walk away from the tree. Maybe the hangman wants to go back in. I don't know. It's a you thing. It's a me thing. It's a you thing. It's a us thing. And what was like a theme between a lot of this was it's on the individual because the collective is compromised of individuals. The collective isn't like it's like what came first, the individual or the collective? Well, the individual came first. Well, I guess a collective is always a collective, but it's made up of the individuals, and without the individuals, there would be no collective. But there would still be the individual without the collective. You know what I mean? Like you would still be you, regardless of if we're all here interacting with each other or not. Like you would still be you if you're dancing on your own. It doesn't matter if you're dancing with one person, 10 people, 50 people. It doesn't matter if you're in a mosh pit or if you're by yourself. If you're dancing, you're dancing, regardless. It's the size that carries the name. Anyway. The Hanged Man, gorgeous, beautiful. There were so many 3 energies, hanged men and women, empresses, world cards, the catalyst. And again, that's the thing about the catalyst. That's the thing about like the hope of the divine is that we do it because it can't be done for us. And with the catalyst, again, the thing is what the thing is. It's what we take away from it. It's what we decide. And that was the shame and the martyr. The shame isn't for us to feel bad. The shame is for us to, it's just like last time I did this, this is how it played out. This is how I felt. Do I want to feel this again? Yes or no? And depending on what that answer is, it's like, so what is the behavior that I'm going to do? Shame is like a guide in that way because it gets us to sort of realize and recognize what patterns and behaviors we don't want to participate in anymore. And then again, with that Queen of Cups, we get to ask ourselves, is this something that I want to continue to do? Or do I want to do something different? And that's what the poet of Avon reports to the Leper King, right? Again, when we start to act out of sync with the realm that we find ourselves in, and so now they have to find a new one for us. Ooh, bottom of the deck is Temperance. But that's another thing that I love about the Hanged Man. Because the hangman is Odin hanging from the world tree, the space where many realms meet. And so it's like from the space of the world tree, and it actually had that energy at the top of the rune breakers, especially. The Yggdrasil is the space where we can watch all 9 realms. And so we get to observe how law manifests in different realms. And because we can see how law manifests, we learn which truths are more absolute and which truths are more relative and localized. And it's almost like we can pull on different truths to, it's like when we adopt a set of local truths that more accurately reflects one realm, then the absolute truth that puts us in a space that resonates with what we hold kicks in, and that absolute truth shifts us to a different set of circumstances where those local truths are true. But it's like the disconnect between living these local truths and those local truths, and then the whole transition process. It's like that's the hanged man, that's the Yggdrasil, that's how we move ourselves from one realm to the other. That's why we go on journeys of healing. That's why our behaviors change and our traumas are healed. And as we do all of that, then we start to experience something different, because then we start to experience truths that resonate more with the truths that we hold, both internally and externally. That's why the feminine and the masculine have their own journeys. Because to be one way on the inside, but to not change anything on the outside, means that the outside doesn't have to change, even though the inside has changed. Then it becomes this game of like disconnects, and it's like, well, internally they're kind of an Alfheimer, but externally they're a Svartalfheimer. So we'll put them in Midgard because it's in between. And then that's when we get the Urkala, the pendulum. That's when we get the shoal. That's like Urkala in nature, but it's less emotionally sort of centered and centric, rather than coming more fully into whichever one. So with all of that, Odin's getting his eye back. Maybe. I don't know. So I will see y'all again in the next one. I hope you all have a lovely, amazing, excellent, whatever, whenever you see this. I hope you're acting in alignment to make all that you wish to experience your reality. And I hope that whatever you need along your path, journey, and way, you find it in a way that is understandable to you. And I hope that whatever you need to do for yourself, or whatever you need to give to yourself, you find the capacity to, even if it may be difficult. But ultimately, I hope it's what you want. I hope you choose what you want. And I will catch y'all next time. Bye. Thank you all for being here. This was enjoyable. This was a moment. It was a cute moment. I'm glad I did it.